discuss how we can host and store our machine learning model that is not in our local system, or rather than storing them in cloud or anywhere in the net, and how we can access them from our web service. So this is the design that we normally follow while making a web service that access a deep learning model. So what we do, like at the start of the web service, we check that if the DL model is there in our local system or not, where the web service is running, and if the if the local model or the local deep learning model that we want to access is not there, we can download the model, and we can keep the model anywhere. Like, it's up to your preference. Some companies store them in Google Cloud, some companies use AWS. You can also keep it in Dropbox. So like the idea is like storing the model somewhere secure in the cloud and then accessing it from your web service when it starts. And if you remember, like we had a section where we had to convert the model from .weights to .pb, and that is the thing that we want to do next. After the model gets downloaded, it checks that if the model that is downloaded is either converted into .pb format or not, and if it is not converted, we just convert the model. We will be using that save model.py. we will be reusing some of the codes from the save model.py in our web service. And once we have downloaded and both converted the deep learning model, we can move forward loading other stuffs of configurations and other things that we need in our web service. And once everything is loaded, we can then allow the web service to start running and listening to the clients to serve them with their request calls with response, doing whatever call they want to do. So yeah, this is the entire idea, and let's go and implement this one. I want to discuss is how we can actually store our model, and in this video we are going to discuss about how we can access and store our deep learning models in Google Cloud Storage or Dropbox. So let's start. And if you have a Google Cloud Storage, then what you can do is you can keep your models in the Google Cloud Storage buckets. You can create a bucket in the Google Cloud Storage, and if you see, you can either create a not public or private bucket where you can keep your model, and this is the Yolo version 4.weights file that we are going to use. This is our model that we are going to download and then convert. So either you can keep it in a private bucket, or what you can do is you can also keep those in buckets which are public to the internet as well. So in order to access these buckets that are public to the internet, you don't need any special access token from Google, but in order to access the buckets that are not public, you need special access tokens or key.json that is being generated by the cloud, and you can use that key.json to access your buckets. But if you are using a non-public, like if you are using a public bucket, then you just need an anonymous access key, and that will give you the access to the bucket. Similarly, when we come to Dropbox, you can also create a Dropbox account, and in that Dropbox account, what you can do is also make a folder structure where you can store the same weights, But in the Dropbox, unlike Google, I haven't seen yet how we can access this publicly. But in the Dropbox also, what you have to do is you have to make an app, and that app will have some permissions that you have to set up, and after the permissions has been set up, you can just go to auth 2 and generate a new access token, and with this access token, Dropbox will allow you to access the buckets and the folders that you have in Dropbox, and with this you can just download the model weights and everything to your local system. So yes, now let's go to the service and see how we can implement something that can download the weight file from either the Dropbox or the Google Cloud. Yeah, let's see that. We are back to our PyCharm IDE, where we just renamed the example service template into image detection service, and this is the service that is an empty template, and what we're going to do is modify this into our image detection service. So as we discussed, what we're going to do in the first step is, when the web service starts, we want to check if the model is there or not, and if the model is not there, then we want to download the model from Google Cloud or AWS or Dropbox or anywhere. So how we can do it is, when the service starts in the run app, what we can do after it reads the configuration, here we can actually download the model, and then we can move forward with the other stuffs. So in order to download the model, what I want to do is use the image service foundation package, because like if we see, like if we discussed as we discussed earlier, we want to use this package for other services also, and if we can make a functionality that is in the image service foundation that can download all the DL models, it can be used by other services as well. So let's just change this image service foundation into a new image service foundation. If you can see now, this image service foundation is a bit different in structure from the empty template that we had. So what I have done is move the configuration manager and utils.py that was mainly responsible for reading the config files and stuff into a folder called config under image service foundation. And I also have created another directory called storage that have a main folder, main Python file that is the model provider. And what this model provider does is it checks what kind of storage we want to access, what kind of model we want to access, and based on that it downloads the model from that storage. And for this tutorial, we are going to discuss how we can download the model from either Google Cloud or Dropbox. So if you see, there are two different Python files, one for the Dropbox file and one for the Google Cloud file. And here we have written down functions where we pass the bucket name and the blob name. The blob name is nothing but the weight file or the name of the file. And once we pass them and we pass the file path where we want to store the model, it just downloads the blob into that file. And if we go to dropbox.cloud, it is the same thing. what it does, it establishes a connection with the Dropbox with the access token that we have we discussed earlier, and then what it does, it just downloads the blob name into the file path that we mentioned. So how we design these two storage classes is very similar, so that when we call from model provider, we just have to call the storage client dot download, and it doesn't matter if it is a Google bucket or a Dropbox file, it will just download it. We will go through this code in debug mode to see how it actually works. And in order to do that, we have to also add some new configuration values here. So in the Dropbox as well, if we see, we need to have a Dropbox.access token here, and then we need to have model location for from where the model will be downloaded and different stuffs. So let's modify the default config as well. Can you see? So here in the default config file, now we have to add a bunch of new things, and what we're gonna do, first we're gonna name the service, and after that we're gonna put where we want to store the weight path. This part is not important right now, we can discuss it later. So what we saw, either we can say that the storage client is a Dropbox or a storage client is G-Cloud, and if the storage client is a G-Cloud, then you just have to mention the blob name, because like the Google Cloud client will actually make the entire bucket name and stuff and make the entire path to that weight file. Or if you want to use the Dropbox, then you just have to give the full path of the file that was there in the Dropbox. That is this one. And in order to access this Dropbox, we need to have an access token, and that we have to create a new config variable, and that would be like this. I don't think we need this anymore, because this is the same as this one, and this will be red. Do we need anything else? Yeah. Let me put in some comments now. And also, if we want the storage to be Google Cloud, so there is Google Cloud. And now in the model provider, what we're gonna do, so now what we're gonna do is first we wanna check that if the file destination exists and is there a YOLO4.weight file present there, and if there is not a .YOLO file present there, we are gonna set the bucket name and just download the weights there. And this is the model provider that is in the foundation. And now in the apps.py, what we want to do is download the model here, and what we will do here is simply copy and we have to download the model provider. So in imports we just download the model provider, and this one needs to be changed. So basically what we are doing, from image service foundation.storage.model, we are downloading the model provider, that is this one, and what we are doing here is initializing the model provider with the configuration where it reads either the client is a Dropbox or a Google client, and based on that we initialize the clients. And here if you see, if it is a Google Cloud, it just initializes the storage client that is anonymous in order to access a public bucket. You can also pass Google storage with the access token that you have, that is normally key.json file, and you can access a private bucket. Or what you can do is you can also initialize a storage client that can be the Dropbox, and then you pass the Dropbox access token here. So yeah, if you go to the Google client, you just see create anonymous client, and that is from the Google buckets that we have here, and also from service.json. And now if we go to the Dropbox storage, you'll see the same thing where it just initializes the Dropbox storage client with access token. One thing we have to do is we have to install the dependencies that we are using. So we'll be doing it in the meantime, and yeah, let's just install the dependencies first. Once we have downloaded all the dependencies that we needed to access the Dropbox and Google Cloud, I think we can move forward and see how it is happening. And let us just print a statement. Downloading model. And if we want, we can also say which model. And yeah, let's see how it goes. So if we want to see the config file, what we have mentioned is the storage client to be Dropbox. By default also we have mentioned it in Dropbox. And then yeah, let's just run the debug, and what you see is now we have a model provider object that has a configuration, that has a destination folder, that reads your project name, and based on that in the etc directory it creates that. It creates that config value, and then from there when we go to download models, what you can see here is just it read all the locations, files, stuff, model type, and basically if you see now the storage client is a Google Dropbox client, and what it will do, it will just go here and ultimately go into Google Dropbox cloud, where it makes a new connection and writes the file into new content. And if we proceed with this, here if you can see downloading the model, apps Yolo demo test.py. What we also want to discuss is now once the model is downloaded, how we can convert it. So basically the way we want to convert it is to take the downloaded model, and here in save.py we have to use this function to convert the model that we are downloading currently from our Google or storage or the cloud storage. So for that, what I see that it needs a set of command line arguments in order to convert this one. So basically some of the main arguments are the output, and if you see it mentions that the output is nothing but the path of the output of the converted file. This is the path of the input file, that is the .wait file. It also checks if it is a tiny model or not, along with the input size of the model, defines the input size of the exported model. There is a score threshold based on which we can filter out the detections, and this is nothing but the confidence filter of the predictions. And apart from that, there is also a flag called framework, where we are using TensorFlow by default, but there is also TRT and TensorFlow Lite, and there are also options for different models like Yolo v4 or v3. So it gives you an option to convert both Yolo version 3 and version 4 model. So in order to do this, what we have to do is create a new class called model converter, and it still says it is downloading the model, and I think it has completed. And if you see now the server has started, and once we go here, you'll see there is a model folder, and inside the models folder you'll see there is a Yolo, and inside the Yolo you see there is a Yolo weight file, that is 25. Now what we want to show is how we can use the Google Cloud as well. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna delete this model folder again, because if the model exists there, then it will keep downloading the model and continue doing other things. And this time what we're gonna do is we are gonna say that we're gonna use the Google storage to download it, and let's go for another run. And now what you see is now we have a model provider again, and what this model provider is nothing but it has an enabled model of Yolo and config variants. And now if you see, the storage client is now a Google storage client in place of Dropbox. And when we go to download model here, so now the blob name becomes Yolo Weight and all that stuff. And now if you see, the bucket name is the bucket name that we have given here, and this is a public access bucket, and here I have kept this Yolo version 4 weight from where I am downloading. But if you have a private bucket, you need access tokens in order to access that weight file. But as it is a public bucket, what you can see is that it already created a client using anonymous token, and this means that you don't need any special permission or access tokens in order to access it, and you just can create an anonymous client and it will become your client. And basically what you are doing at the end of the day with this client file is then basically you are sending this client to initiate the bucket and then find the blob and eventually download it. So if we go down to the debugging again, so we see now that there is a blob that is in the bucket in the data pinch markers, and there is the weight file. And what it will do is now again it will download the Yolo version 4 model. We can see how it is downloading. So again you see there is a new folder created automatically, and inside the folder there is another folder called Yolo where it is currently saving the weight file. Should go. This is a weight file of 247 MB approximately. It takes a bit of time, but yeah, it's how we are designing our web service is it will be a one-time thing, and once the model has been downloaded, we don't have to download the model ever again. So if we see, it's still downloading. Almost 243 MB is done, and I guess our model is downloaded and completed. Nice. So now the next step what we want to do is convert the downloaded model that is here into a .pb format, which we can use to do inferencing, and that we will see how we can do that.